So we have introduced the system 4 design. So as you can see, system 1 is management doesn't trust the employee, okay? And then system 4 is trust and then collaborate, delegate the responsibility to employees, okay? So this is more, we call this employee. This is, I call employee-oriented, employee-focused approach or organization design. Organization design, this is, usually we narrowly define this as organization structure. And then you see this organization chart. Although in the textbook, it says like, organization chart represent the organization design, but this is a very narrow, or I say this is oversimplifying. The organization design is a much broader definition. As here, I use this, like small diagram. Sorry about that. It's very small, right? It can be somehow defined as the alignment of the structure itself, process, the systematic process within the organization, and the reward system, the motivation system, right? And then also other, let's say, performance measurement, right? And then the human development. The alignment of all together, this becomes the organization design. So organization design is a much bigger topic. We understand like the design, or simply speaking, this organization chart, it is different, right? From company to company, and then also it is not like a static one. It is a dynamic, it is changing all the time. We just introduced the 3 situational elements. Contingency factors will affect the design, organization design, and then the organization chart, organization structure, organization chart. First is the size, and then the life cycle of the organization. Pretty much you already understand, right? So small company, startup company, bigger company, they will have very different organization chart. Very likely at the early stage, they have a very simple, they even don't need to draw this old charts. We call this like less specialized, centralized, right? Less standardized. Well, you don't have that structure. I think as I shared with you, like my friend, he has a small company, and they're all managers, 5 people, all managers. The company become a large company or multinational companies. There you can imagine that the organization become very complicated. The corporate level, the business unit level, or let's say that the branch level, or when we talk about the functional managers, those are all the middle managers, okay? The middle manager. And then you will go down to this, the big structure, and then you go down to this, there's a low level, right? The low level positions. And then also you can understand it like this life circle, right? So the company, actually this is similar to the size, but from the time perspective, anyway, life circle, right? So good time development, the time decline, right? So until like, the company, disappeared. The technology, I would say, although the technology will affect the organization design from a different perspective. Let's call like specialized, concentrated, right? Or let's say we use the low technology, we use the high tech. We call this a small batch technology, right? You simple small batch, or you use like a complicated high technology, but this is for the mass production, assembly lines. Moving from the spectrum, right? From small batch to big batch, large batch, right? And then you will see more focusing on the individual, or we are more focusing on the machine. Apple's, iPhones, contract manufacturing, which is not really a Chinese, a Taiwanese company called Foxconn, 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 very famous. So it's pretty much like assembly line, right? And then this is the mass production, large batch mass production, right? And then they are less care about the employee, allow me to say. They are more focused on the process, production process. So although they are using high tech, but they are less concerned about the employee. If I refer to the system 1 is more focused on the process, less care about the employee, and the system 4 is more focused on the employee. Okay, and then what you choose, for Foxconn, I would say system 1. Individual employee become less important, but the small company, startup company, individual are very important because you play different roles, right? So probably you needed to adopt the system 4 approach. If we have this is a very special one. We call this is the continuous process technology. What does that mean? Long range, right? Started from the raw material to the process, and then to like this, involve very complicated process. Focus on the employee for research development, right? So we want them to create new things, being very, flexible, being very creative, right? So we needed to adapt the system 4 approach, focus on the employee. But if we are narrowed down to this, the production process, probably the machine take over, right? And then we less care about the employee. So it is a combination of system 1 and a system 4. And I have to say, for all systems, system 1, 2 system, it depends. So this gives us a general idea how this technology will affect the organization design. And then the very last one is we talk about the environment. Let's measure whether the environment is complicated, very complex, but it's very, the dynamic, right? Whether it changed often. You will see. We call this moving along to the northeast side. This become very uncertain. The environment become very complex. The environment become very dynamic, and then it become very uncertain. Usually you will say, hey, agribusiness, are we facing a certain environment? Probably you say no, right? And then I would say, oh, okay, very likely we started from in the middle, all right? But moving away from the certain to uncertainty, right? Since the pandemic, many things become very complex. Taking this energy, only take this energy, demand, supply, and then price into consideration. This pandemic itself makes things very, dynamic. So recovery, and then a new new virus variant pop up, plus this inflation, or let's say talk about this, which organization design we choose, okay? So I would say very likely, we needed to adapt to this system 4. Let's say focus on the employee, support the company to survive.